This might be the first time where I actually went live after the countdown. Morning, everybody. I feel like this is a little fuzzy or foggy. I'm not sure if that is just my eyes or it's actually the screen, but I'm going to trust that it's my eyes for better or worse. How is everybody? Good morning. If you are taking this in as we begin our day here on Thursday, the 10th of August, 8/10/23. And we are rapidly approaching the end of summer. I know, right? Which, as soon as we get to the beginning or the proximity of autumn, it means we're actually reaching the end of the year. And wrap your head around that one, as we always do, right around this time of year. And we ask ourselves the proverbial question: where did the time go? Where did it all go? And we'll all be asking ourselves that question in, I would say, much more intimate ways at some point down the line. Well, I hope your day is starting off to be a good one. And if you are somewhere else in this realm and you've already lived your day, well, I hope that your night is peaceful, restful, playful, relaxing, rejuvenating, and meaningful. And maybe I'll address a little bit of the evening conditions just so we're not North American centric or sort of Western, Northern Hemisphere centric. I'll try to do some of that today. Let's see. What do we got? 8/10/23. Yes. There it is. Let's bring it up. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the cosmic skies. And there we go. There we go. All right. So we are now, well, we have been in second decan Leo, and which is the Sagittarian decan. It's really interesting if you also look at this decan through what's going on in Africa and Niger. And essentially what's happened is, the second decan has to do with like Sagittarius and foreign relations, the big wide world, international culture, expansion, law, religion, philosophy, higher consciousness. Well, it could be my favorite house. Honestly, I love the ninth house. But that is also the house of Jupiter. That is the house of Sagittarius. And that is the house of the second decan. And so what's happened in Africa, I'll talk more about this on the 9/11 show, 50 Minutes of Flame. The United States and Europe decided that they were going to just run a pipeline right through Niger all the way to the coast so they could run that oil, which they found in Niger, and run it all the way through the northern part of Africa because they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And the people of Niger said, hell to the no, right? Hell to the no. So there are much larger philosophical and moral questions and equations that happen at the second decan of Leo. And we're in it for the next, 2.5 days. And then it moves into the Aries decan. And when it moves into the Aries decan, we're talking conflict, right? Like that's how, if you can't resolve it with some kind of reasonable, everybody gets a slice of the pie, which I think Sagittarius is pretty good when it comes to being sharing. Very generous signs, Sagittarius. And I don't think it's going to be, I don't think they're going to reach that kind of accord in the next 2.5 days. So I think that's going to be intensified. Also, I feel like as the sun moves into the Aries decan, we're going to see more fires, right? We're still watching and witnessing this big, just like scary fire in Maui in Lahaina, and I don't think it's stopped. Well, the fire itself in Lahaina will eventually stop, but the fires themselves, as we go through the third decan of Leo, I think are going to pick up. And you know, it's really interesting when we see these squares going on too. You know, we have the Sun Jupiter square, and that, sometimes when you get into a Sun Jupiter square, you're paying for excess. You're paying for the excess. You're paying for, and I can relate this back to what's going on in Nigeria. We're paying for kind of the excess um, force, or the excess um, arm twisting, or the excess uh, demand for other countries' resources. Me and Dr. John were talking about this morning. Just getting a little off, but we're still in the astrology. We're talking about it this morning, and I'm all in favor of these African nations basically saying "fuck you." Okay, we want to keep our resources. I'm in favor of that, right? But on the other hand, because we have blindly trusted, and sometimes not so blindly, sometimes eyes wide open, but reluctantly trusted these people who would actually make these incursions into foreign territories to do what? To gain access to oil. That brings us over to Neptune, right? And now we have this Mars Neptune opposition. So we're going a little global today. I'll bring it back down to the individual. But if we talked about this on the show the other day, every time we have seen a war since the year 2000, it has involved a country that has oil, right? So if we just track 9/11, Afghanistan has some natural resources besides opium, which is very Neptunian. Um, Afghanistan has huge reserves of natural gas. And then it was Iraq, and of course we talked about the oil fields in Iraq, southern Iraq. And then eventually, what happened? Libya, oil producing country. Syria, Syria's an oil producing country, especially the northern part of Syria. So every time we went into one of these regime changes, the backdrop has always been petroleum, oil. And so now we're going through this other thing. So the regime change flipped and went the other way. Aquarius is like when Pluto went into Aquarius, it was like a virus had been inserted into the system. Now I know it's retracted, and we're dealing with Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, but it it made its imprint into the system, right? And so what we're seeing now, particularly in Africa, are these countries that are rebelling, and they're saying we've had enough, right? So this whole plan of kind of endless war that Newland and the neocons have been in, really for one of the sole purposes of controlling petroleum, right? They wanted to. Russia had figured out a way to extract oil. Russia, see, okay, this gets back again with Neptune. Neptune is deceptive. Oil's the way that they've described oil is just a bill of goods. It is not the result of carbonized vegetation and dinosaurs. It's not. The planet continues to make oil on a continuous basis. But you have to be able to um, allow it to kind of refill every now and then. You can't over drill, which is apparently what's happening in Saudi Arabia. But the Russians figured it out. They figured out how to extract what they call abiotic oil, which changed their economic trajectory and providing all this energy for Europe. Well, of course, they decided no, we're gonna go to a proxy war with Russia. We're gonna bomb the Nord Stream pipeline, and we're gonna take over the oil trade, and we're gonna basically use Niger's oil in order to do that. So here we have Mars. We're bringing it again back into astrology. The closer Mars gets into an opposition with Neptune, Neptune, of course, rules petroleum and oil and drugs and alcohol and the trance and the haze sometimes of mass consciousness delusions. It can be very heightened spirituality, but as a kind of a dualistic proposition, Neptune generally tends to trend with the lower part of the expression. To get to the higher part of the expression with Neptune, I mean, you really have to go in there with a high degree of intent, impurity in a lot of ways, right? So here we have Mars and Virgo, which is all about necessitation. And I think by the time Mars moves into opposition with Neptune, I think we're headed towards more of an intense and concentrated conflict. It feels like everything that is being done is reactive and not proactive, which whatever you think of the Russians, they tend to be proactive. They tend to be ahead of the chessboard. All right. Bringing it back into the personal, as Mars goes into this uh, more direct opposition with Neptune, you don't want to spend your time and energy pursuing fruitless projects, right? To me, the Mars Neptune opposition is just kind of throwing good money after bad or good energy after bad. You want to be really clear about where you're spending your time, money, and resources, right? Because there is some progress that an individual can make here, right? We got a nice grand trine starting to line up with Mars and Jupiter and Uranus and Pluto. But these are not vanity efforts. Like there are the reward here is what's real, right? What's real, what's on the table, working with what you already have and not discarding it for some dream or some kind of false illusion that if you do this thing that eventually you'll get over here and you'll reach El Dorado. No, we're dealing with things that are tangible, right? This is all Earth, 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 Earth. Mercury's coming into play, and Mercury's picking up speed. Every day Mercury gains another degree. On every other day, Mercury gains a degree on Mars. So eventually, by the beginning of next week, we're going to have a Mercury Mars conjunction. Now, this is what you want to use astrology for: timing, right? So this leads into my promotion of the new show that we're doing on Monday called Serious Sports. That's Sirius. I'm going to put the link in the description. And it's a new show I'm doing with Al Dog. That's Dawg, like Deputy Dog. Only Al is his first name. And we're going to spend 2 hours on every Monday night talking about sports, astrology, culture, arcana, esoterica, some conspiratorial stuff. It'll be very interesting, a lot of fun. You'll learn more about astrology, and I've got a particular kind of idea for this show that I've been cooking up sort of on the back burner here and working with a very talented artist and designer, Bree. So it's a really great opportunity to explore different territory, but using things that are already available, right? It's not like I'm going to do, I'm sorry, I'm using me. It's all about me today. It's not like I'm going to go do a show on fashion or something, right? Or a show on, I don't know, the paranormal. Like that's just using what is already there and taking advantage and building upon the resources and the materials. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because on Monday night we launch a show, and that's where we're going to have Mercury conjunct Mars, and that's what you want to do, right? Now, I didn't really go out and plan it that way. Sometimes life has its own synchronistic, kismetic operation, but we've been working towards it. And so the launch point is going to be right there and be right in the pocket, right in this pocket with the Grand Trine. So it'll be really cool. So please hang out with us on Monday nights if you have any interest in sports and astrology. And it'll be cool because Al is a millennial, and I wouldn't call myself a boomer. I wouldn't say I'm Gen X. I'm somewhere in between. I'm that elusive Gen Jones, and it'll be good. One of these days, I want to have Longo and Christopher Gardner and Al and myself on the show. And what we'll do is I could be the boomer stand-in, and so we would have Gen Z, Gen X, the millennials, and me being I'll be the boomer. I'll play the role. It'll be a good show. And then, of course, my pal, my antipodal pal, Mark Matheny, 29 Pisces, he'll be on the show every now and then. That guy's a font of astrology, and he has all these charts. He's got thousands of charts for football players and teams. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. So bringing it back home, this is what you want to do. You want to look at what's on what you have. What are your available resources, and work with them. Work with them. Do not overextend yourself. Right? That you don't want to do this either through activity that is not in this pocket, right? Now, Neptune can play a nice little role here, but if you look at what's happening at the top of the kite, because we're dealing with a kite pattern, these are all outer planets. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they're all outer planets. So how do you access the outer planets? This is ground zero over here. It's Virgo. And you're dealing with and working with what you know and what is in your area of expertise. And if you stay in the pocket, then the outer planets theoretically, think of this as heaven, right? This is heaven. And we'll put Neptune at the top. And if you stay in the pocket and don't try to get outside your lane, right? Then theoretically the heavens will reward your effort. So this is a really nice configuration with the kite. Of course, we have some squares going on here. Watch out for hubris and pride. I was struggling with that yesterday, I have to say. It was one of those moments where somebody said something on Twitter and I felt like it was sort of, how you have these moments where it's like, you're not talking about me, but I feel like you're talking about me. Then you have to like check out your paranoid sort of monitor, your paranoid meter. Like where am I peaking in the paranoid meter? Right. I'm thinking, should I say something back? Maybe it's not about me. Because in Leo, we have this tendency to think it's all about us. Like, oh yeah, maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it was. But it was one of those things in my head. It's kind of like, you can't, you got to get the last word in. And this is one of the things about social media that is really, really toxic. Like, did that motherfucker talk about me? Was he talking about me without talking about me? Right? Now, I will say something about that. I think if you're going to, if people do this, and I'll raise my hand here. I'm guilty of it every now and then. You'll say something in a vague generality, but you're really meaning that you're really talking about somebody specific. So the question is, does keeping it real matter? Should a person basically say, hey, I think this guy is talking out of his ass? Should they say that? Should they be direct or should they be coy? I think communication online is really tricky. And I think you have to get really good at it. And sometimes you can be very transparent, and other times maybe not so transparent. So it was interesting, but you have to be careful here because we're still in that zone, right? Where there's a lot of ego identification and the Sagittarian decan. So who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? Right? In typical Scorpio rising fashion, I had all these retorts that were building in my head. Use none of them. There's bigger game afoot, right? These are tests. These squares are tests. And if you can manage the impulsive potential, because the Sun Uranus square is impulsive, right? And really, the money is here. It's here. So, what can you do here? You can channel it. A square is something you can channel. It's not easy, but if you can work with the hard angle, right, you can literally flex that influence into something useful. Think of it as energy. Friction is energy. This is flow. And life is a dance between friction and flow. Yin and yang, right? Yang is friction, yin is flow. So we have the moon in Gemini, and as we talk about yin and yang. It's a chatty moon. This weather may go over the limit today. It's a chatty moon, and of course, our friends, both ruled by Mercury, come in and square one another. So be precise with your chatting. Be precise with your language, but don't be afraid of this. Now, this may sound counter to what I just said. The online thing is a whole different beast. But I would say here, on a much more personal level, do not be afraid to talk things through with another person. Don't be afraid, right? This is what the moon is going to continue to transit through Gemini, right, and continue to be in this square. It's kind of moving out of the square with Saturn, which is good. So, but the moon in Gemini, you're going to talk anyway, right? The challenge with the square with Virgo is that people are coming with facts, right? They're coming with facts. They're coming with data. They're coming with information. They're coming with details. So be prepared if you have to talk through something that you're going to need to process a lot of information and a lot of data, and hopefully have something mean. The thing with the moon in Gemini is you can play ping pong with stuff. Or what about this? What about this? What about this? So if you have to get into a discussion today, here's what I would suggest. In a discussion where you're really having to work something out with a person, try to couch or frame your discussion in third party scenarios. Like, what if? What if, right? Gemini loves to ask questions. What if? By doing that, here's what you do: you don't personalize it. You're like, it's like, well, what if this scenario that you're talking about looked like this? What if it looked like this in the other direction? How would it have changed your feelings about it? Well, it might have. Okay. Well, what role did you play, and what role did I play in that change of scenario? Well, that's a good question. Well, why don't we figure that out? Right? Let's figure this out. Gemini's really good at that. Gemini's really good at separating out and being a little detached about stuff. And Virgo gets lost in the details. Now, if you come in and you just come in guns blazing, and with all the details. That Gemini moon will fuck with you too. That's the other side of it. It's a trickster. Use it to your advantage. What if? What if the moon is moving away from Saturn, which is good? Most of us slept on that moon Saturn square last night. I hope people slept okay with that moon Saturn square. It could be heavy sleep. It could be difficulty waking up. I would say this is a very interesting day. Very, very interesting day. Don't sleep on the potential. You know, that true note is at 27 Aries. And this morning, I spent probably about, I got up early at 5:30. And I spent about, I don't know, 45 minutes listening to an audio presentation of a guy who wrote a book on General James Westmoreland, who was the commander in chief in Vietnam for 4 years. And what a fuck story this guy's life was. It was just like it was obstacle after obstacle and defeat after defeat. And I said, "What sign is this guy?" He's an Aries. Of course, he's a general. And then I thought to myself, Aries is great when it's winning. When it's not winning, man, that is a hard sign. Like that guy went through the grinder. What an intense life. Could you imagine being the general of the Vietnam War and ordering 500,000 troops over there and being responsible for their lives, the lives of the Viet Cong, the lives of the South Vietnamese? That is a heavy fucking burden. And he didn't do very well. All right, let's talk about our star of the day. Now, our star of the day is a winner. He is a bona fide winner. And his name is Doyle Brunson. Now, some of you might enjoy a little poker every now and then. Doyle Brunson was the first guy to win the Binions World Series of Poker. He got there first, born in Longworth, Texas. And I love this quote. Success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. I think James Westmoreland might have had some of that. But look what he's got. He's got the moon in Aries, right? And Uranus in Aries. That is an Aries platitude right there. That is an Aries quote. And what's interesting is when I think of somebody who plays poker, also Sag rising, that's a Sag rising sentiment too. When I think of somebody that plays poker, I think of the eighth house, right? You're not going to show your cards in the eighth house. Sun, Mercury, Pluto. He's an eighth house dude. Good luck reading that old weathered face, right? I watched Doyle Brunson a lot when I went on a poker binge back in the 2010s, and I was obsessed with poker. And I honestly, I would play online, but not for money. You know, just a little shitty, you know. And I usually did pretty well. But there were times when I went out to the casino and I did play poker, and I had some interesting experiences. Here's what I couldn't take. I couldn't take the bad beats. I would get so fucking pissed. I would get so pissed. But and you have to take bad beats in poker. Poker's an interesting game. Like you learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about other people. And I was really interested in poker because of the high stakes nature of the global economy. And that's when I realized that that's what we're in, right? Everything on the globe is high stakes poker. And it is winner take all. It is binions. And at the end of the day, one group wants to have all the chips. That's how you win, right? You get everybody's chips. So he's an eighth house guy and clearly works to his advantage. Jupiter, right here on the midheaven, Jupiter, the planet of luck and fortune, right? And he's got a Jupiter sextile to Pluto, 8th house. He knows when to hold him, knows when to fold him. Why? It's Virgo. Virgo is circumspect. It's not Jupiter and Sag. If it was Jupiter and Sag, he probably would have been one and done, right? Or maybe he would have, I don't know, done something else, picked up some other skill. Doyle Brunson is universally loved too. Like people loved Doyle Brunson, and that's the Venus Jupiter. Nobody ever said a bad word about this guy, and even though he would always play against people like Phil Hellmuth and Phil Ivey, the latter, Phil Ivey, got caught up in some pretty heavy online betting schemes. Doyle Brunson never got involved in stuff like that. He was not above using his name, likeness, and image, but he never got involved in the whole scandal side of online poker, right? He's got a really interesting chart. He's got Mars and Libra, and again, when it's right, like finding the balance, finding the active balance with, okay, I'm going in or I'm going to fold. I'm going in and I'm going to fold. And here we have Mars trine Saturn, which is self-control. Doesn't quite have a grand trine, kind of close. Self-control. And he's got that true node in Aquarius. So what is he going to be? He's going to be cool. Good luck reading this guy. And he's going to be well-liked. And if I'm not mistaken, that first World Series of Poker was broadcast on ESPN. And then he became kind of an internet star. So Doyle Brunson had a number of different chapters in his life. And you can even see, like, with the ingress of Uranus into the 5th house, and the 5th house being gambling, games, pastimes. He's a risk taker, right? That's what he is. That's what he does. He's a risk taker. And look, this guy took some hits. He lost his daughter, Doyle. That was her name, Doyle, named after him. She passed away. Maybe we could attribute that to the Pluto moon square. But he's an interesting character. And if you're looking for somebody's chart that reflects what they do, Leo, pastimes, games, and he's the master of the 8th house, he's not going to show you. He's not going to show you his cards. He's not going to give you any tells. And Saturn also, he comes to success a little bit later in life, right? Because poker is one of those games. My grandfather used to go to this place called the Doghouse. I swear to God, it was called the Doghouse in San Bruno, California. He would go down there and play poker, but it didn't really hit the mainstream until kind of the time Doyle Brunson comes along. And by that time, he's, I think he's probably around in his late 50s, right? Mid 50s. Saturn always brings the goods later in life. And again, in Aquarius, he becomes an internet star. He became synonymous with poker. Him, Phil Ivey, Phil Hellmuth, Johnny Chan, all those first wave WSOP champions, right? So anyway, there's your star of the day. The inimitable and I would say incomparable Doyle Brunson. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll be over at the old 15 Minutes of Flame Corral, coming right up after the show at 9/11. And one of the things that I do every day in one form or another is I ingest CBD, not just any CBD, True Hemp Science. If you go to truehempscience.com, you will see all the varieties of their CBD, and they are specifically crafted for certain things. There are plenty of CBD companies out there, and some of them are quite good. But Chris actually gets molecular with his CBD, and he figures out what is good for the very specific uses that CBD has been created for. So go on over there, truehempscience.com. Check out their alcohol or water soluble CBD. Check out their edible CBD, the gummies, the moon dust, the sleep gummies, the other things like the topicals. And if you spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, 15MINS, and you will get free product with your order. If you feel like you'd like to have a session or a reading with me, go to robertphoenix.com. And don't forget our event here. It's on robertphoenix.com in the hill country. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be the fucking eclipse. It'll be apocalypto. No, I'm just kidding. But it's going to be memorable for sure. Like you're going to be able to say, I was at the eclipse, the first of two eclipses. We're going to be there together. We are going to courageously step through the seemingly dark portal. It's an annular eclipse, so there's a ring of fire, right? So it's contained. It's contained by a band of energy. Anyway, that's going to happen on October 13th. Into the Hills is the place where it's happening in Kerrville. I don't know if they have any rooms left, but if you're interested, you need to get a room because this place is sold out. Sold out. Although, so the big news is it looks like we're going to be moving to Kerrville, and set up a bunch of teepees in my backyard. I'm sure my new neighbors would love that. Anyway, thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Mods, thank you for all your help. Have a great day. And if your day is over, please enjoy your evening. And maybe I'm trying to figure out how to work with some of the folks that are not on our time zone. Anyway, take care. We'll see you. Bye for now.